Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Hello all, and welcome back yet to another WWE 24 review. This is the Club with the Man 1993, and this is episode... Sorry, a little frog in my throat there. This is a little episode. This is not a little episode. This is episode number 34 of this WWE 24 review series, as we take a look back at night 2 from WrestleMania 37. The first live event by WWE in front of fans since the pandemic era. Although they would go on for 3 more months after this to go back to the Thunderdome before they went back to doing matches in front of live crowds, the SmackDown before Money in the Bank that summer. But of course, this WrestleMania, as we talked about in WrestleMania 37 Night 1's 24 documentary review, they had a limited crowd at Raymond James Stadium at like 25,000, I believe it was, they were allowed to have in there. And this was night 2. Some more behind the scenes stories of some of the matches, such as, of course, the main event, which was Roman Reigns and Edge, who won the 2021 Rumble, and Daniel Bryan. We also had Rhea Ripley, talk about her story as well, Sheamus, and also Natalya and Tamina's, which was kind of a meh one, if I'm being 100% honest. Funny enough, I am actually making my list while recording the audio for my 2021 best and worst matches of the year as I record this. And funny enough, the Tag Team Turmoil match from night 1 of WrestleMania 37 was on that list as well for one of the worst matches of 2021. But I do like, again, overall, how both these documentaries, WrestleMania 37, really highlighted on the emotional side as to how this WrestleMania was an emotional one. As, you know, although these superstars do appreciate the opportunity they get to perform in this business, this one showed that they were also very grateful and realized the difference with not having fans around, as of course they had their back on the show. So I like how it kind of touched on all of that and some behind the scenes stories as well. The first one, well, before they got into the stories, they did address that there was heavy rains again. I believe Natalya had said it had been nice weather in Tampa, like all the way up until that weekend, and then it was like rainy and bad that weekend. There was rain, of course, that delayed night 1, but there was rain during the day on night 2, but there wasn't a weather delay for night 2. The first story they got in and talked about was Natalya and Tamina. Now, Natalya and Tamina had won the number 1 contender Tag Team Turmoil the night before when they defeated, I believe the teams were Naomi and Lana, Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, the Riot Squad, and the random team of Carmella and Billie Kay. Because they had split up Billie Kay and Peyton Royce randomly that fall before. That Peyton Royce has said, or Cassie Lee has said to this day, she feels was her fault, because she once mentioned that she did have interest in being a single star, and they just immediately broke them up. But, so, they were kind of more so telling a story about the pressure that both of them have, and of course, ironically being a team, that they both come from different wrestling families. Tamina comes from Jimmy Superfly Snuka's family, and Natalya, of course, comes from the Hart family, because Bret Hart was her uncle, same with Owen, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart was her father. And, of course, why is the cat meowing again? And then, of course, though, they both came together and they won night one. Which, I'm not going to lie, again, like I said, it's on my list of one of the worst matches. And even this story kind of fell a little flat. So, they obviously mention, their backgrounds and, just, coming together as a team, showing that they mean business and whatnot. They talked about the match they had on night 2. And it was one of the things where it's like, and I don't want to down either one of these women. If they really feel that this night was special with them tag teaming, I don't want to, sour their moods. But if I'm being 100% real, I did feel like it was a match that really needed to be highlighted, if I'm being honest. Because, it was it felt like it was progressing this great story, Tamina talking about, how she was going to get into wrestling when she got into college, and she got in a car accident. Then she had her 2 daughters that changed her life, and that did, that make her determined to get back out there and try to follow in Jimmy's footsteps. Natalya as well, of course, trying to keep, the Hart family's a legacy going with her getting into the business and whatnot. All that was good. And then they talk about, the big moment at WrestleMania 37 where Tamina goes for the Superfly, splash. And, of course, she misses. And then it's yeah, we missed, but we lost, but, blah, blah, blah. And it was just, like I said, I just feel like it kind of just fell a little flat. It was they've done, this is the first documentary I feel they've done this in a while, but it's some of the earlier ones. At WrestleMania 32, where it's AJ Styles had his first WrestleMania match, and he lost to Chris Jericho. But it was kind of yeah, I lost, but oh well. I don't know. It's I feel like there's some moments that yes, a loss can really, be an experience, but this one just fell so flat. It's as a viewer, I was just okay, you made it so this was such a great moment, yet the only highlight we see that you doing that, or whatever heck it was. And I was just okay. And, that's the problem. WWE, Tamina, I'm pretty sure she's not with the company anymore. She did not really have that much of a run. I mean, she had some, moments where she stood out, she first came in with the Usos. She was with AJ Lee, which they did highlight that. And, of course, she was with Team Bad. But it's kind of just, she was always, very in and out. Again, if the moment meant something to them, I don't want to take that away from them, but as far as trying to tell an inspirational story on a documentary, I just thought it felt kind of flat. If I'm being 100% real, it just felt like a very flat moment that was it's built some good, and then boom. They would eventually, of course, win the tag titles eventually on an episode of Raw. I think not long after that, but it was kind of okay, why did you have to lose that Mania just to win on a rematch on Raw? I didn't get that one. The second one they did highlight over was Sheamus. And how, this was kind of the WrestleMania where it's he felt like he came back around full circle after being kind of directionless for a while as a single star. They mentioned, of course, how he first came into WWE and he beat John Cena in a kind of a lackluster tables match to become champion just 2 or 3 months after he got to Raw. And then he faced some big names during that time Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, and even, of course, eventually he would win the Rumble and would beat Daniel Bryan in 18 seconds. Well, then, after he won the title in 2015, when he cashed in on Roman Reigns, and when he dropped it, he kind of mentioned that that's when he hit his rock bottom. Because that's when the brand split came back, and he was drafted last in the draft for the televised portion. And they did that story around a time where, like, you know, both him and Cesaro were kind of like disgruntled and whatnot, and that's what they led to their best of 7 series and then becoming a tag team. But I didn't realize how much that moment, like, was very low for Sheamus, because he's like, how did I go from being world champion 7 months earlier to then being the last draft pick for Raw on the live television draft? I heard that, I'm just like, geez, like, because I remember at the time, like, I just felt that he wasn't being booked as good as he could have been, because he had just been a heel for like a year. But of course, you know, even like, you know, like when he teamed up with Cesaro, that was like, you know, some great fun that he had. Like, that allowed the two of them to really, you know, fuel things back up again and everything. But then he had that injury, and he kind of like, you know, was directionless again for a bit. And then he got this chance to wrestle Matt Riddle for the United States Championship, which at the time, that's when Matt Riddle was just Riddle, because Vince McMahon wanted to drop the Matt from his name, because when he looked at Matt Riddle, he was still getting his little like iffy history at the time, basically, which, yeah, that was weird. I'm surprised he didn't give him like a riddle me this gimmick or whatnot. But that I felt was a very underrated match that weekend, that U.S. title match with Sheamus and Matt Riddle. And Sheamus, for the 3rd or 4th time in his career, won the U.S. title in a very great, hard-hitting, underrated match with him and Matt Riddle. That finish was incredible, where Riddle went for that moonsault, and Sheamus basically did what Adam Cole did to Ricochet at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn in 2018, Brooklyn 3, when he super kicked Ricochet as his head was down. Yeah, Sheamus bro kicked Matt Riddle in the face while he was hanging down doing the moonsault, which was a sick looking finisher. So Sheamus kind of got a moment that kind of like, you know, got the fire going in him again as a single star. Although he would have like a pointless feud with Humberto Carrillo that summer, until he dropped the U.S. title to Damian Priest at SummerSlam later on that year. But that was definitely a good moment for Sheamus that he, you know, felt he really needed. So I'm definitely happy for him for that one. That was a good one. Rhea Ripley also talked about how, you know, she got all her emotions out for night one. How the previous year when she wrestled Charlotte at WrestleMania 36 for the NXT Women's title, she still thought it was a great match. But it was hard kind of like going back to NXT and feeling like she had hit the drawing board a little bit. But then when she got the opportunity to be in the Women's Royal Rumble, and how it came down to her and Bianca, and of course she was runner-up, she thought was very special. Now, the original plan, they didn't talk about this. I didn't realize it too until I talked about it. This WrestleMania did not have either Charlotte Flair or Becky Lynch. Becky was still out on maternity leave, and Charlotte Flair's story, they didn't talk about this in the documentary. Originally, the plan was, for what I could tell from storyline-wise, the match at this year's WrestleMania for the Raw Women's title was supposed to be Lacey Evans winning the title from Asuka at Elimination Chamber. Because at the time, she was doing some weird thing with Ric Flair. So it was supposed to be the big match that Vince always dreamed of Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair. That would have been horrible. But then Lacey Evans got pregnant, so the storyline had to be dropped, even though she announced she was pregnant, by basically like implying that the baby could have been Ric Flair's, which was awkward as hell. And Charlotte Flair had gotten sick with the elephant in the room when that happened. So she was off WrestleMania as well because of that. So instead, we had Asuka keep the belt, and she wrestled Rhea Ripley. So Rhea Ripley, her first like main roster match, I believe, as a single star, was at WrestleMania. Of course, you know, she was the NXT Women's Champion before, but her first WrestleMania on the main roster, she got a chance to wrestle for the Raw Women's Championship. I do remember that match kind of disappointed me a little, But it was still a great moment for Rhea to win her first main roster championship when she defeated Asuka for the Raw Women's title. So that was, nice to see for sure, the emotional side to it. They surprisingly, I'm really surprised they didn't talk about Logan Paul on this documentary, though. I really thought they would have mentioned him because this was the first WrestleMania he appeared. He was involved in the storyline with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. That's when Sami Zayn was this heel who was talking about the conspiracy theories, and he had his documentary, and for some reason he wanted Logan Paul to be someone who was a fan of it, and then he just, for no reason, invited Logan Paul to be his guest at WrestleMania. It was weird, and of course, at the time, I'm just like, who the hell is Logan Paul? Now, of course, know who Logan Paul is way too well, which I'm very surprised, again, they didn't really talk much about him. Maybe they'll talk about him more for the WrestleMania 38 24 documentary, maybe. I don't know. Because I haven't seen that one yet. But, yeah, it's a surprise. But they did spend time talking about the build for the main event. Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. This was special because, of course, this was Edge's first match since, his second match since his return that was in front of fans. His first, of course, was Royal Rumble 2022, and then, of course, everything else was not in front of fans. And of course, he was out injured with that tricep injury. But just the fact that he was able to get back and win a Rumble, which he won from the number one spot, and get to main event WrestleMania, he thought was a treat. Because, of course, we all know Edge had to retire because of his neck injury. Daniel Bryan, of course, didn't think he would ever get to main event WrestleMania also because he had to retire because of his neck injury, which this was one of Bryan's last matches in WWE before he left for AEW. And then there's Roman Reigns, who was, of course, at the beginning stages of his Tribal Chief run, and he also at one point thought he would never be able to wrestle again because of his leukemia. So kind of like all those comebacks came together for one match, and it was an outstanding triple threat match. Definitely, I would say one of Roman's best WrestleMania matches. Great near falls, great spots. So many moments where it felt like one of the three could have won the match. And then, of course, we all know that famous finish where Roman stacked the both of them, making him look like an amazing monster and winning the match that way. Which, again, I thought that was a crazy but creative way to get Roman the win, the whole wreck everyone and leave. And yeah, it was just one of those moments where it's like, all three of these guys thought it was never going to happen again for them. But, of course, it did. Because keep in mind, also, this was the first WrestleMania Roman had main event since WrestleMania 34. He was in a more of a cool-down match with Drew McIntyre 35. At WrestleMania 36, he backed out at the last second because of the pandemic. But, yeah, outstanding main event. And, again, the documentary ended basically with everyone just, again, talking about how, how much they realized they really missed the fans when they got to this WrestleMania. And, like, how, like, an emotional of a moment it was. He, of course, dealing with, like, the rain delays, like, wanting to get back out there, but having to wait a little bit longer and whatnot. It was overall, I thought, was a great WrestleMania for sure. Again, a couple little hiccups in there, but yeah, this was a very well done documentary. As I keep saying, I really do enjoy the documentaries in this series. A couple that I was a little meh on, but this one was another good one. But yeah, we've gone through both the WrestleMania 37 24 specials. We only have 3 episodes left to review in this series. The next one is on the 2022 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Not really too excited for that one because I was not a big fan of that pay-per-view. WrestleMania 38, which should be very interesting for sure. And then the last one is the Damian Priest one. I have not seen the Rumble 2022 and the Mania 38 one, but I have seen the Damian Priest one once, which that one was really good. But yeah, we're just about done with this series. Again, I do hope they continue to make more of these 24 specials because I am definitely a huge fan of them. So we'll have to wait and see, of course. But guys, That's my thoughts on the 24 documentary special for WrestleMania 37 Night 1. What were your thoughts on this documentary? And, of course, the behind the scenes and the stories that they shared for this as well. Leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. And be sure, as always, to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. And follow me on Twitter as well at The Club with the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at The Club with the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night, and do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself, and that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!